Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Racing Pigeon Insights Podcast. We're thrilled to have you with us today. In this episode, we're diving into a topic that's absolutely crucial for anyone with racing pigeons, but might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking about upping your game with your birds. It's not always about pushing harder, is it? Sometimes the key to unlocking peak performance lies in giving our feathered athletes the rest they truly need. That's right. We're talking about rest and recovery. You might be wondering, what could be so exciting about pigeons resting? Well, stick around, because we're about to explore how rest isn't just downtime. It's a vital part of your pigeon's success. So, let's get started.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. For this deep dive, we're going to be talking about something that's super important for anyone with racing pigeons.
Absolutely.
And might not be the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're thinking about upping your game with your birds.
It's not always about pushing harder, is it?
It is not.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about rest.
Rest. That's right.
Now, I know what you might be thinking.
What could be so exciting about pigeons resting?
Right. My birds rest when they're not training or racing.
Haha, exactly. That's what they're supposed to do.
Right. But this is about more than just letting your birds sleep at night.
Yeah, everyone focuses on training strategies and feeding regimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Which, of course, those are critical.
Of course.
But sometimes I think we overlook the importance of rest and recovery.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point.
Because without adequate rest, our birds can't perform at their peak.
Totally.
They're like athletes.
They are.
If you work out every single day without giving your body a chance to recover, what happens?
You burn out.
You burn out, you get injured,
Exactly.
your performance suffers.
And it's the same for our feathered friends.
It is. And I was reading this article, fascinating stuff about a champion pigeon racer who was saying that he sometimes even skips races.
Really?
Yeah, even when his birds seem to be in top condition.
Interesting. So he's like holding them back a little bit?
Yeah, he's like resting them strategically.
Wow. To get the best long-term performance.
Exactly. Because he understands that even if a bird seems physically capable,
right,
there's more to it than that.
Yeah, the toll that racing takes on their bodies, especially those long-distance races.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking hundreds of miles sometimes.
It's incredible.
It's amazing what these birds are capable of.
It really is.
But we have to remember, they need time to recover and rebuild.
So it's not just about muscle recovery either.
No, it's not.
It's also about their energy levels and even their immune system.
Exactly. Think about it. When we're stressed, we're more likely to get sick, right?
Absolutely.
Same goes for pigeons.
Yeah.
Constant training and racing without enough rest, it compromises their immune system.
Right, and then they're more susceptible to illness.
Exactly.
Which obviously is not good if you want them to be performing at their best.
No, not at all. We want our birds to be healthy and strong for the long haul.
Right. So rest is not just about preventing burnout.
Right.
It's about ensuring their overall well-being
Mm-hmm.
and maximizing their potential over their entire racing careers.
You got it. It's about playing the long game.
Absolutely. Okay, so we know rest is important.
Absolutely.
But how can we tell when our birds actually need it?
Right. It's not like they can just tell us, hey, I need a day off.
Right. They can't exactly pass as a little note.
Although that would be pretty amazing, wouldn't it?
It would. But you know what?
What's that?
They actually can tell us in their own way.
Oh.
How so?
Oh, we just have to know what to look for. And that's where this whole idea of loft flying comes in.
Loft flying?
Yeah. So our source was talking about how you can tell a lot about your bird's energy levels and whether they need more rest.
Okay.
Just by observing how enthusiastically they fly around their home loft.
Oh, interesting. Like just letting them fly freely.
Yeah.
Exactly. No structured training, no pushing distances.
Gotcha.
Just letting them be birds, basically.
And observing how they're moving.
Exactly. The source actually used this great analogy. They said birds should be thoroughbreds, not workhorses, in their loft flying.
Okay, I like that. So we want to see them really rearing to go.
Yes, like they're eager to stretch their wings.
Got it.
And glide through the air.
So what should we be looking for exactly?
Well, imagine you go to open your loft doors, right?
Yeah.
And instead of this like explosion of birds into the sky,
Right.
they're just kind of, lingering.
Oh, so even if they're not like completely inactive,
Yeah.
just less energetic than usual.
Exactly. Less of that like, let me at 'em energy.
Interesting.
That right there could be a sign that they need a break.
Huh. I never thought
Yeah.
about it like that.
It's like they're saying, easy does it, coach. Just need a little breather here.
Haha. I love it. So what do we do if we notice that in our birds?
Well, according to this champion racer, sometimes the best thing you can do,
This is the guy who skips races strategically.
the one and only, he says sometimes you just got to give them a day off.
A day off, really?
Whole day. Just like that.
Yep. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Oh, so they're not even training that day.
Nope. Just rest and relaxation.
Wow. Okay, so they just hang out in the loft, business as usual.
Pretty much. Just make sure they have plenty of fresh water and their regular food.
Okay, so no need to change up their feeding schedule or anything.
Exactly. Just let them rest and recover. Their bodies will do the rest.
It's amazing how counterintuitive that seems, you know?
It really is.
You'd think, oh, my birds are looking a little sluggish. Better push them harder.
Right. But it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, you got to listen to your birds.
Exactly. They know their bodies better than we do.
So we've been talking a lot about loft flying
Right.
and how that's like a big clue to whether your birds need more rest.
It's a really good indicator.
It is.
Exactly. Those can be signs that something's up.
Wow. This has been so eye-opening. It's amazing how much our birds are telling us.
They really are.
We just need to know what to look for.
Exactly. It's about tuning in to those subtle cues.
So to wrap things up, if our listeners take away just one thing from this deep dive,
What's that?
what should it be?
Observe your birds. Really pay attention to them, to how they're flying. Your pigeons are constantly communicating with you.
That's such a good point.
It's up to us as their caretakers to learn their language.
I love that. Learn their language.
Yeah.
So folks, next time you're out in the loft with your birds, take a moment to just really observe them.
Listen to what they're telling you.
And who knows, you might be surprised by what you learn. Until next time, happy racing, everyone.
Now that we've had an insightful conversation about observing our birds and recognizing when they need that all-important downtime, let's shift our focus to how some of the world's top pigeon racers implement rest into their routines to achieve unparalleled success. For these first 2 episodes, we're including the full content to give you a solid foundation. However, in upcoming podcasts, these detailed how-tos and deeper insights will be available exclusively for subscribers. So be sure to sign up and stay connected for access to expert advice that can make all the difference in your pigeon racing success. Now, let's dive back in and see how rest truly enhances a pigeon's athletic ability through real-life examples from champion fanciers.
Proper rest enhances a pigeon's athletic ability. How? Scientific research has proven that resting our pigeons can improve their blood's athletic capabilities. To maximize our loft prizes and each pigeon's ultimate success, proper rest involves 2 factors: time and quality of rest. I was thinking yesterday that some racing pigeons, during the flying season, are almost never home. How many times have we received a call from the Liberator informing us that the birds would have to be held one more day before being released due to bad weather? They get basketed on Friday, held over until being released on Monday, and then again, this Thursday, they're back in the basket, about to head off to a race once more. Is this the best for our birds? Think about it. These birds could easily have to spend another 2 days in the basket again next week. Then, using their own muscle power, they have to fly the 280 miles, 450-kilometer home again. Quite often, when you think about it, our race birds are only home for 3 or 4 days before being quickly sent to the next race. Many fanciers miss the subtle cues that should tell them, hey, this bird is not ready to be sent out to compete yet. By design or by circumstance, our race birds are often away from home. How does a busy race schedule affect their performance and even their chance of making it home safely? I've had many conversations with champions, and they often told me that the right type of rest is a key factor in their success. Experience over the years has taught me, and many champions I've visited have confirmed, that after poor weather causing holdovers, it may be best to keep some birds home for a week. In one instance, I decided to keep some of the older pigeons home, but let the yearlings race. My reason for this was that some of my older proven performers were not racing as well as they should have. I hope what I'm now going to share with you will help you make these decisions. I remember very well a visit to the famous Janssen fancier, Wout Smeulders. Anytime a bird was 5 hours or more in coming home from a race, it did not race the next week. Fondly, I recall Smeulders' Olympiad Janssen pigeons and his bloodline birds at Bertus Kempu, breeding such champions as James Bond, Eero 6 and 05. And who can forget the incredible performances of Smeulders Janssen pigeons at the Ponderosa in Holland? The famous bloodline from those birds is still prized to this day. When you have a few heavy races with the weather a little on the poor side, drizzle, headwinds, haze, high humidity, and heat, champion fanciers start to watch their birds more closely. They know you must only send a pigeon to a race when it is in good form. When a bird has come back from a race, before you consider shipping him again, he has to show he's ready. One of the key indicators that seems to always be missed by the less experienced is a bird's vigor during times of loft flying. If they don't obviously want to fly with gusto, maybe it's best to keep them in the loft for another day to rest. During loft flying, birds must fly with pleasure and exuberance. If they look like workhorses instead of thoroughbreds in their flying, then more rest is probably required. If you're not winning prizes the way you want to be, then rest is an area you should examine as soon as possible. If you're a beginner, pay close attention to this. Watch how your birds loft fly the first day after a race. Then strongly consider giving them a day's rest with your regular feeding. The next day, observe the difference in the way they exercise during loft flying. Why would any of us knowingly let our birds teach themselves the habit of flying a little slower when they feel physical exertion? Birds must be kept in the habit of flying fast and with purpose. We are going to talk a great deal about this subject in future podcasts. Unfortunately, in many racing pigeon lofts today, the birds train the fancier. The fancier is not training the pigeons. But don't let this observation end here. After studying how your birds exercise, go watch the birds of your local club's best performing fancier. See if his birds don't seem to fly a little faster, with a crisper wing beat and noticeably shorter wing stroke. Also, their tails in flight may look less wide than your own birds. European Racing Pigeon magazine's headlines read, Toon Geurts sets new European record, winning 2 years running, ace pigeon, long-distance, national races. With what Toon Geurts of Holland calls his acid test, he has proven these winning elements of his racing pigeon's resting system, quantity and quality. 2 years in a row, Geurts won ace long-distance national pigeon of Holland with 2 different pigeons. He also won a top 10 national award in middle distance. All this with a loft of only 6 pairs of breeders. Toon Geurts and his son Henny, for the second time in 2 years, won the title of Best Long-Distance Pigeon of all Holland. These national races contain an enormous number of pigeons, many thousands, and only the nation's finest and fittest compete. Toon pays constant attention to the comfort of the pigeons in the loft. He is a great believer in the benefits of heat for racing pigeons resting in the loft. He will always add heat when he feels it's necessary. With his champion team of middle-distance Janssens, he uses heaters in the loft during the cooler weather early in the year. In the year before I recorded this information, the weather was cool and wet in the spring, so the heater was turned on the last few days before shipping. If the weather is cool and dry, then the heater is turned on at night at the end of the week. If the weather is cool and wet during the racing season, then the heaters are used every day. This is especially important to Toon Geurts when the birds arrive home from the race. He feels the cocks must be made to feel most comfortable when they arrive home. He warms the loft just before the race birds return. He is of the opinion that the best temperature for the birds is 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 degrees Celsius, with higher being much better than lower. The wizard Toon Geurts had very few pigeons, but once again had a superb team with outstanding results, winning the title of National Champion Loft third. This was accomplished flying against professionals with hundreds of birds, and in those years, over 55,000 lofts in a country made up of many long-distance specialists. Incredibly, the wizard has only 6 pairs of breeders and a dozen or so national pigeons, competing against men with hundreds of racers and lofts like palaces. What Toon Geurts has done in winning ace long-distance pigeon 2 years in a row with 2 different pigeons is something never done before in the history of pigeon sport in Holland. And of course, this was incredibly outstanding. The man having only 6 pairs of breeders and about 12 long-distance widowhood pigeons. Toon Geurts was a true master of the game of managing pigeons. In some future podcasts, I hope to share with you more of his incredible management practices, some of which have not been published before. Toon's race birds are never forced and never put out for a loft fly in bad weather. He remembers that this year, The weather was poor for days before 2 of the national races. The cocks were locked in for days and Toon won handfuls of prizes. Toon finds that for optimal performance, these cocks should get 3 weeks at home between the longest distance races. During this period, they would do no more than loft fly. Toon is always of the opinion that his short middle distance Janssen birds should race every week until they stop winning prizes, then rest. With the acid test, Toon has proven his system is a much preferred one. If your pigeons are not performing up to expectations, I've seen fanciers in this same situation benefit by implementing a system of not letting their race birds out of the loft the day after returning from a race, nor on the day of basketing. I'm looking forward to sharing with you additional notes on the resting, training, and conditioning systems used by truly champion flyers in both Europe and North America. Only pigeons displaying the proper loft-flying behaviors are in condition to win the races. Some people say our birds get a good rest in the basket en route to the race. They even insist that 2 or 3 nights in the basket being shipped to a 500 or 600-mile race will put the bird in better condition. But what about the pigeon not receiving proper food at its accustomed time? And what about enough water and a proper night's rest without being disturbed by a number of other unfamiliar race birds? For example, on occasion, our birds can be driven day and night over the road and then, upon arrival, are given an almost immediate release. An individual racing pigeon that is a little nervous or high-strung cannot sleep or rest on these trips. And those birds that are used to being fed and watered at the same times are put under harmful stress. How can a pigeon that is normally quiet rest with so many new rivals in an agitated and aggressive frame of mind? After the birds arrive at the release point, some drivers force them to sit in a hot trailer out in the blazing sun. Our birds should be treated on the road with as much care as possible. We should ensure that the drivers are caring for them as well as a good fancier would if he were driving the truck. It is not easy on our birds to be home only 3 or 4 days and then back in the basket again. We, as fanciers, must be alert. It is not easy for birds to race every week under these conditions. It is recommended that we manage them very well when they are at home. Feeding properly, watering, and ensuring they get enough golden rest is key.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's deep dive into the critical role of rest in pigeon racing. We've seen how observing our birds, understanding their needs, and providing quality rest can make all the difference between a good performance and a championship win. Remember, rest isn't just about preventing burnout, it's about ensuring your pigeons' overall well-being and maximizing their potential over their entire racing careers. Make sure to subscribe, follow us, and stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to bring expert insights and tips to help you soar in the pigeon racing world. Your pigeons are constantly communicating with you. It's up to us to listen and act accordingly. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy racing.